competing for players like Portis are competing against the teams for their services that they have to go up against. I can tell you that the Miami Heat were interested in Bobby Portis Jr., that they thought he could be a really nice fit. They didn't get him. They obviously have lost P.J. Tucker to the Philadelphia 76ers. This is, at least for me, this Bucks team is the best team, the most talented team, I think, right now on paper. And not just on paper. We've seen them win an NBA championship in the Eastern Conference. And the one hedge we might have had before was, well, Durant and Kyrie and, Simmons plays, but that's obviously going away. So I think Milwaukee is doing what they need to do. They're shoring up the guys that they have. They're making sure that this team stays the same. They're clearly going to, because they have a little flexibility, they're going to supplement a little bit with mid-level exceptions and some other guys. But this is just a reminder that one of the stronger teams in the Eastern Conference is the team that won a championship a couple years ago. And to be able to retain this guy is a really, really big step in what is a very crowded Eastern Conference.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a smart move. Smart teams make smart moves, and they don't allow their quality free agents to just walk out the door. You won a championship with Bobby. I remember when he was playing for Mike Anderson at Arkansas, Mike raved about Bobby, with the toughness and the motor. He's improved his outside shot. He's a reliable three-point shooter. He and Brook Lopez are different in some ways, but yet the same. They both can play inside a little bit. And now with that open offense to allow Giannis Antetokounmpo to have all those driving lanes, Bobby's a good rebounder, good defender. And if they're healthy, if Middleton stays healthy in the playoffs next year, they arguably could be the favorites to win the Eastern Conference. I would not be surprised. I know for years, they coming into this year, people thought it was the Brooklyn Nets. Never was sold in terms of the Nets because I thought they needed to improve defensively, and they didn't have the experience on the sideline coaching. But Mike Budenholzer, championship-level coach, spent a long time as an assistant with the Spurs, coached the Atlanta Hawks, and now, as a championship coach with Milwaukee. So they have the pieces. And when you have the Greek freak playing at a high level, and he's got a tremendous amount of good basketball left in him, and now you retain your quality free agents like a Bobby Portis, they couldn't allow him to leave the way they allowed P.J. Tucker to leave. Smart move by the Milwaukee Bucks.
NBA free agency is underway. Avery Johnson and Bill Ryder, I am very thankful that we have the two of you on retainer. It's goodbye for now, but I see
here. But it will allow, actually it has allowed the 76ers to have enough cap space to go and get P.J. Tucker. And that is a veteran guy. That's a guy that can contribute. It's a player who is coveted by competitive teams in the Eastern Conference, where obviously the Sixers are going to be one of those teams. And so they're able, because James Harden took a little bit less money, was able to, and again, he's going to get more than $47 million. Obviously, he's going to have it spread out over several years, be $100 million or whatever it is. But it's not the kind of money he could have commanded because that Sixers organization gave up so much to get him. It is a player cooperating with and being, again, on the same page as his organization to allow a little flexibility, to bring in a little more depth and a few more players. And in the end, guys, what it does is it makes the Sixers a better basketball team and more competitive in a very crowded top of that Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I totally agree here with Bill. This contract has already been verbally agreed to. I think it's going to land somewhere in that $32.5 million range, 3-year deal, maybe a player option at the end. But this will be a 3-year guaranteed contract minimum. This allows Philadelphia to have some flexibility to make some other moves. And then also, they traded for DeAnthony Milton, a guy who had an up and down career with the Memphis Grizzlies, but a relatively still young player out of USC that has a tremendous upside. They're going to lean on him heavily, especially I don't see James Harden playing in 82 games. And when he plays, they're going to need some backup reinforcements from a guy like Milton that before he got COVID this year with Memphis, he was playing at a very high level during about a 10-game stretch. They decided to bench him for a game or two in the playoffs, and then some other games he played well. But this is a situation where this is a general manager in Daryl Morey, president Daryl Morey, and Elton Brand, GM, where these guys are synchronized along with Doc Rivers in terms of what's best for the team and what's best is to try to go out and sign a guy like PJ Tucker. But the only way they can do that is if they have some more flexibility, and James Harden's going to provide that.
All right, Coach, I'm sticking with you here because we saw earlier your boy, Devin Booker, signed that 4-year deal worth over $200 million with the Phoenix Suns on extension. As of right now, DeAndre Ayton remains a restricted free agent on the Suns. What are you seeing happening there with the big man?
Well, I think it all depends on, pretty much signing trade situations. The Suns have invested a lot in Ayton. He's had his moments where, he's played like a top 5 center, and then he's had some moments where he's come up short. There were some discipline issues towards the end of the year. But unless you can get involved in the Kevin Durant sweepstakes, I don't know if there's a better situation out there than re-signing DeAndre Ayton and running it back. You were the number 1 seed in the league. You won, 64 games. You got upset at home in Game 7, where at that point you played your 95th game of the year, and that was your worst game of the season. You picked the worst time to play the worst game of the year. So unless you can get involved significantly with the Kevin Durant sweepstakes, I don't see anybody else walking through that door. There are a lot of teams that were targeting DeAndre Ayton. I don't see him going to the Spurs. I don't see him going to Indiana. The Spurs right now look like they're going to just hit the reset button and go through a total rebuild the same way we did before we drafted Tim Duncan. So in this situation, I would re-sign DeAndre Ayton unless you can get involved with the Kevin Durant sweepstakes.
Yeah, I'm 100% with Coach, and I think that's not what's going to happen. And I think Coach and I are on the same page that barring a 180 by the Phoenix Suns, who have been pretty consistent, they don't value DeAndre Ayton at the level that certainly other teams will. He's going to get, I think, guys, a 4-year max deal. DeAndre Ayton's going to go somewhere else. And I know there's a notion out there's an idea that maybe DeAndre Ayton can be part of a trade to the Brooklyn Nets because Kevin Durant wants to be a net. But just remember that if you are a team bringing in a player on a sign-and trade, you immediately get hard capped. And the Nets have a pretty hefty salary contract threshold right now. They have a lot of money on the books. And you get back to that Ben Simmons issue. Now, if you move on from Kyrie Irving, that certainly takes care of that. So I think DeAndre Ayton's going to be somewhere else. I think Toronto's an interesting location. We'd heard about Atlanta, but obviously they've already made a move for DeJounte Murray, though they're not necessarily ruled out if they were interested in that. Someone out there is going to value DeAndre Ayton at or around a max deal. And the Phoenix Suns, right or wrong, and I think it's wrong, and it sounds like Coach does too, do not value him at the same level. And I think it's very likely he will be playing his basketball somewhere else at the start of next season.